Hi all. This is not sure what evening it is. Some evening. I've been looking at logs and they're good. And I think that what happens to some of you is that you get to a point where you've hit the end of the line in terms of the thinking, and then you're not sure how to proceed. Like you don't know how to open it up anymore. You know that you've been thinking about something, it's been going well, and then you sort of run out of gas. Like you've done you've got the thought is basically that's what you came here to, you came here to do. You had the thought, and it's sort of over. And at that point it's really normal to have to pause. And so although we've a number of us have talked about the fact that these logs are sort of written in a stream of consciousness, the stream may have slow parts where nothing much seems to happen and you stop and you have to wait. In other words, there won't be any writing or production for a little bit. So at that point, you want to sort of jog it along. It's sort of slow. It's a slow part of the stream, if you want the metaphor to carry on. So what you do then, what I recommend is I keep writing this, and I'm gonna post this instead of continuing to write this. And I'll say, see my note about, see my note about keeping the flow. But there are a couple of things you can do. The thing I usually recommend is asking yourself questions. And I know that initially that sounds like it's like, like how am I going to ask questions if I don't have anything else to say? It's like, and that's fair enough. So one of the things to do is if you're sitting there and you're staring at the screen, it's like, okay, get up and move around first. So you start walking around, and as you're walking, you're like, okay, so you start talking to yourself. What have I been, what have I been thinking? I have been thinking about Top Gun and the way that it's overtly sexist and crazy, and it's just craziness. And then I'm thinking, well, is anything like so? Okay, so what might I be thinking? So instead of getting like, I don't know how to make that breed more, it's like instead of that, it's like let's go out on some. Let's open it up. Let's have this start to open up, and it's sort of like make a tree out of it. Let it have roots, let it spread, or some organic metaphor. Your mileage may vary. So you start to think, like I would think associatively. I'm like, okay, well, is there a Top Gun today? It's like, well, American Sniper is pretty close. It's like, yeah, okay, American. I know people will say, what? American Sniper is not the same at all. It's like, I don't know. Look at the position that Sienna Miller is put in as the wife of this, the legend, the killer of killers, and so on in American Sniper. Or what about Gal Gadot? It's like, well, does Gal Gadot, and this came up in class, and it may be something that does come up in class. Like, well, does Gal Gadot, is Wonder Woman, would we look, say 40 years ago, if we'd seen Wonder Woman, would we say, oh, this is noticeably a different film than Top Gun? It's like, or is it still a romance? I mean, fundamentally, in the first film, let's say, leaving alone Wonder Woman 84, which is an interesting time period to cite that in, but let's go with this first film. It's like, is this really different? If it's different, how is it different? Is it does it show women in a better way, or does the fact, and this came up, does the fact that Gal Gadot is an Israeli, and that essentially a vocal supporter of the IDF, does that have anything to do with the film? So it's like what else is going on? And if that doesn't grab you're like, no, but I didn't see Wonder Woman, Tim, and I'm not interested. It's like, okay, fine. What about other films that you've seen recently that do have women in strong, tough roles? Charlize Theron and something like Atomic Blonde, or like, have you seen any of those movies? If not, why not? Why haven't you been interested in seeing them? If you're a woman, is it because they're just sort of dumb actioners? It's like, okay, fair enough. Have you seen something like, I don't know, not Pretty Little Liars, but Big Little Lies or something like that? What is the relationship of the Nicole Kidman character to the psychiatrist or psychologist in this case? And so on. So you start to, it's like open this thing up for discussion. It's like, and if that's not of interest to you, it's like, well, I'm interested in beauty. I'm interested in, why was Kelly McGillis considered to be beautiful then? When we look at Kelly McGillis, she's not ripped. She's got the body which is basically soft, essentially. She's closer to Marilyn kind of beauty, although Marilyn was really quite rounded, zaftig. We don't really have this word, but sort of, yeah, we, we don't really have this word in English. But this is an ideal of beauty which we no longer have, really. It doesn't mean fat. It means rounded. It means sort of pleasing. And it's not Kim Kardashian, who has this hard body. I mean, there's this like, who seems to be completely made of plastic. It's like, okay, so what about the beauty myths? So what's happened to those in this last 40 years? You think, are things better? Are they worse? So you start asking questions, and as you keep asking these kinds of questions, you're like, well, Kim Kardashian makes me think of, I don't know, this 17-year-old who, misery for her, I think, Olivia somebody, right, who just shot through the roof, and even the publicists, right, in LA are like, oh my God, we're terrified. We've never seen anything happen this fast. It took a week for this young girl, she's 17, right, to go from a Disney kid to being the top of the empire. It's like, what does that mean to her? What does that mean, more to the point? Like, okay, she's an individual, but what does it mean to everybody else who is now 17 or 16 and looks at that and says, that's what I want. I want to be that. I want to be beautiful like her. I want to have long dark hair, but they don't look like that. Or they haven't had they haven't been groomed. I mean, she's been acting since she was 8, so she's been groomed, to look like this for 9 years. God knows how long. Has she had eating disorders? If she hasn't had, she's probably going to have. It's like, what? Okay. So it's like, more. You start pulling on these ideas. The more you pull on these ideas, the more ideas you're going to have. So then you're like, wait, bingo. And whatever it is may have connected with you, somebody you know, somebody you talk to, something that happened to you, something you're thinking of, something you read from wherever. And you're like, I just heard something go off. And then you sit down and you go back to writing. And it may have no connection with what was just happening. And so you can, if you're nervous about it, you can say to me, this is later now, but I'm coming back to this and I'm thinking, and I'm like, I don't actually need that. I'll just be like, oh, okay, you made a leap from here to there. I'm not concerned about the leaps, right? This is not an essay. I'm not expecting you to make me follow a point form, a chain link. No, this is not chain link. There's no chains in here. If you bring chains in, there's chains. But ideally, no chains, okay? I'm going to post this, and you can certainly email me about it if you need any clarification. It just might help. And anyway, yeah, it might help. Okay, stay warm all. Oh yeah, I forgot. I forgot to do, because we're not on Zoom, I forgot. Jazz hands. You got to do jazz hands at the end of Zoom, otherwise you don't know it's over.